I mean, I think for us as Tangata Whenua, it was a place where we were targeted. And I think the reality is that, the greatest force of artillery was channeled through this harbour. And over the course of time, our Māori leadership got to a point where, they felt they had to stand up.
It all culminated in the land wars in 1864. We had the two battles, the Battle of Pukehinehine or Gaipā, 29th of April 1864, and the Battle of Te Ranga, 21st of June 1864.
On the eve of the Battle of Pukehinehine, Brown entertained the soldiers at the Elms. When Māori saw this, they realised that their relationship with Brown was severed.
The British came here at Pukehinehine, Gaipā. They had a force of about 1,600 soldiers. They set the artillery up and started bombarding the fort, which is built on the ridge behind us. Eventually, they go forward on the assault, and so they're blazing away. It's just like a little killing ground. Now, the British Army's always prided itself on having something called a high break point, but they broke that day and ran away.
The strategies that were put forward, it just so happened that Māori won the day that day, and with Penetaka Tuaia designing the trenches and Rawiri Puhiraki's leadership and Henare Taratoa writing the rules of engagement, that all culminated in a victory that day. Then unfortunately they moved down to Te Ranga, and at Te Ranga some people call it a battle, we don't call it a battle.
A scouting party came across the Māori defenders in the act of building a new pa at Te Ranga. So they immediately sent out a force of about 600, I think, plus cannons, usual thing. Got there really, bombarded the unfinished fortifications. They only got down as far as being them knee deep. And then they just mounted a bayonet charge. The majority of the Māori defenders, over 100, were killed there.
So it was a bit of a raid by Colonel Greer at that time, and unfortunately Henare Taratoa and Rawiri Puhiraki were killed that day, and our recollections are they were rolled into the trenches that they were making and covered over, and then the road was cut through. So they're pretty harrowing memories for us as Tangata Whenua.
Later on in that year, they were told that you've been found to be in rebellion against the Crown. The punishment for that is confiscation of your lands. And so, the whole of Tauranga was confiscated land after that.
And after that, there's a little known, it's a less shared story about Te Ranga, and then, the scorched earth policies, where it was pretty awful what the military were doing after that about getting out and amongst kainga and burning unfortified villages and basically cultivation. So, I don't know how much the wider community knows about that, but that's certainly forms the core story for us.
My grandparents, they were the children out of the battles who had to go and find and look for land to live. We had to move back to Huria, and the Bush campaign took place there as well in 1867 and slaughtered our families and burnt our houses to the ground. My village was hit three times. So we carry a mamae that hasn't been settled.
Although the government confiscated all the Tauranga land, in the end they decided they would only keep 50,000 acres. The rest of it would be passed back. But the 50,000 acres they chose to keep was our 50,000 acres. So that's the land between the Wairau River on the northern side and the Waimipa River, which is just below us here. So all that land they decided to keep. So we ended up being landless.
Some of the land was given back to some of the hapu, but it was not within the 50,000 acre block, which is where they focused on building a city.
land was betrothed for the purposes of the people, not really for the city to build their council buildings on there. It was never meant for that.
This city was built on betrayal, and we're starting to make some progress, but we've got a long way to go.
The impact on education for the Māori children during the era of the Native Schools Act, the Māori children were sent to Bethlehem Māori School. The language had been suppressed, the culture had been suppressed. Now that, I think, is really detrimental to the way that the Education Act dealt with people.
I began school at Otamate Primary until Primary 3, when I, along with all Māori children, was transferred to the Paeroa Native School, Bethlehem Primary. We were the first children affected by the Native Schools Act, although at the time we didn't know why we had to change schools.
We think that colonisation is something that happened in the 19th century, but actually colonisation happens in the 21st century as well.
How the protests of 1987 happened was over the old Tauranga town hall.
I saw some not too pleasant things on those days, and I wondered why these people were protesting, why they were blocking this progress.
I was on the street watching all the commotion going on, like everyone else, and that was like, whoa, what's happening here? Still a bit immature to understand what was going on.
One of the mainstays along there has been Peri Kohu. He was certainly part of the protests in 1987 and was arrested and served some time. But certainly later on in life, he talked about the virtues of being able to lower your voice and strengthen your argument.
I look back on those days and I understand why the protest was happening and the connection to this land that those protesters had. And I had a great opportunity to have a chat with Peri Kohu and said to Peri, if you were protesting today, I would be standing alongside you because that is something that's worth fighting for, I feel.
When the council decided to demolish the town hall and put something else in there, we made the point that this land was supposed to be for us. It was held in trust. You as the government and now you as the council should fulfil the obligations of that trust. So that occupation went on for several days and then led to a confrontation with the police, during which various crazy things happened.
My mum and dad were at the town hall at the time that all of that happened. They had karakia with the whānau, with Peri and his whānau, his dad, inside, and then they came out.
And in the end, people were arrested and taken away, one of them, of course, being Peri. Yeah, it was a very emotional time for our people, and we haven't forgotten what happened that day.
Those are memories that you will never forget because you've been brought up in that, and that's what Manawataki means to us.
I'm so glad that Peri, who passed away last year, was here long enough to see the council admit that yes, you were right. We are now half owners with the council in that land. So I'm so glad that Peri was alive long enough to see that happen.
In our view, he defended about the history of the settlement of our people there, and also that we should have some say, particularly with that parcel of whenua where Te Manawataki will be brought to life.
In my view, the Crown, the Council and the Church is actually a troika that is jointly responsible not only for the past but for the current disenfranchisement of Māori from their ancestral lands. And so something of substance needs to be done.
You know, I think at the end of the day, what we're doing with Te Manawataki o Te Papa is going to be a huge step forward. I think the more we know the truth and we just embrace that truth, we don't need to carry it, we don't have to have guilt about it or anything like that. We just need to know, for whatever reason, that's how we came together.
And I think we're slowly getting there. We're not quite there. We're not quite at that place we want to be with the coming together and everyone being happy, but you can see it changing. And that change is happening because it's happening up at the top, and that's council. The change is happening there and it's filtering down, and we're starting to have these beautiful partnerships with council and the rest of our communities now, which is awesome to see. And like I said, it's only gonna be for the betterment of all the people of Tauranga.
Te Manawataki o Te Papa is a beginning. It's an acknowledgement, and to some it may seem quite profound, but in actual fact it's really just the beginning of some of the reparation that will bring real healing and real reconciliation to the heart of the city, to Te Papa.